welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we are going to talk about 1619, which sounds like a long time ago, and it was, but we have some special celebrations and ceremonies to mark that time when the first Africans arrived in what is now Hampton. And here to talk about that is Calvin Pearson. Hello.
Well, thank you.
And Larry Gibson. Welcome.
Welcome.
So this is an annual thing. I mean, you do something every year to mark the anniversary of the arrival, but gearing up toward 400 years, the city, state, there's a multitude of things planned.
Yeah, this is our 11th year doing African Landing Day, and we knew that as we got closer to 2019, a lot of organizations were going to come forward. So we have developed a partnership with the Hampton 2019 Commission, the Fort Monroe Authority, the National Park Service at Fort Monroe, and the National Park Service Foundation. We're all coming together to try to work on some programming and activities for 2019. So you said we've been around a long time. This is our 399th anniversary, and we're leading up to, this is like a prelude to the next year, the 400th anniversary of the arrival of the first Africans. So we're real excited about what we've done in the past and the activities and projects we've got planned for 2019.
Well, so let's first talk about what you have planned for this month.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think, you know, we have to start working through a lot of this stuff and celebrating it now. It's not just a one-time 400th anniversary.
Yeah. One of the buzzwords we use is commemoration. We try to stay away from celebration. So what Larry and I have done over the past almost 25 years now that we've been working together is to try to look at this as a commemoration because we do not want to celebrate slavery.
It's a difficult thing. Some people don't even want to acknowledge that it happened or that Hampton, you know, was the first landing.
People don't want to talk about slavery, but we say that if we look at the last 400 years of history, the arrival of those first Africans was a monumental, it was a seminal moment.
Changed the country.
In America's history. So we can't neglect it, and we can't ignore it. So that's why we don't have a problem talking about it, but we always want to look at it as a commemoration. One of the things that we're doing with the federal government is that they've come out with a federal act on the African American 400 years of history in America. And they're looking at it as a commemoration of the arrival, but a celebration of all the achievements that they've been able to accomplish in the past 400 years. So it's a combination of commemoration and celebration.
Well, and that's what I think too, is because it's a celebration now. I mean, not that there aren't still lingering issues from a lot of lingering issues from slavery and Jim Crow and segregation and all that, but it's a celebration of the contributions of African Americans.
And that's the positive.
Had there not been African Americans, can you even imagine what this country would be? I can't.
That's the positive approach to it, but when we go back and look at the history, you can't neglect.
It's not a pretty history.
You can't neglect 246 years of slavery.
No.
You just can't neglect that. So I brought my special guest today is Larry Gibson. He and I have been working together for 25 years. This gentleman here is one of the people who started the Sickle Cell Anemia African American Festival.
Yep.
So we've got a lot of history. And so I wanted to just bring one of my board members here today to let people know that this is not a singular event. People like Larry Gibson, Bill Wiggins. There's a lot of people who've been working on this project for a long time, and I just wanted to give them a little praise this morning of all the achievements that they've done to make this event successful.
Well, let's talk for a minute about the history part of it.
Okay.
So what do we know? And I know there aren't terribly good records, but what do we know about that first ship, where it arrived, who was on it, how it got here?
Well, 25 years ago, we started a campaign to tell the...
You did a lot of that research. You truly did, Calvin.
We're a team, and we've started a process of telling the truth because in our history books, it talked about our ancestors were brought here by a slave ship. And we found out that it was not true, that the first Africans were brought here by pirate ships. The two pirate ships, the White Lion and the Treasure, attacked a slave ship and took their cargo of humans and brought them here to
Which
Point
was
Comfort.
designated for somewhere else.
They were designated to go to Veracruz, Mexico, and they were going to work in the silver mines for the rest of their lives. So there was a lot of controversy around surrounding whether they were indentured servants or whether they were slaves. So that's an ongoing discussion now that we hope to resolve between now and next year. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there that we've been trying to dispel and disprove for 25 years. But the arrival is one of the biggest controversies. We were taught in school that they arrived at Jamestown, and through the research we did, we discovered that no, they did not arrive at Jamestown. So Jamestown is gradually changing the context of their narrative to show that Point Comfort is the original arrival site.
And many of them made their way to the Jamestown colony, but not all, right?
Well, when we look at what John Rolfe wrote, he said in the latter part of August of 2019, 20 and odd Africans were delivered to Point Comfort. Out of those 20 and odd Africans, only 2 went to Jamestown.
Okay.
So that's where the narrative is really screwed in the narrative, because they wanted you to believe that all 20 of them went to Jamestown, and we only know that 2 went to Jamestown. We know about Anthony and Isabella stayed here in Hampton.
And tell us just a little bit about those. I know the story, but not all our viewers.
Well, the first ship that arrived here in the latter part of August was the White Lion, which was an English privateer, which is nothing more than a pirate ship. And when they docked at Point Comfort, the commander at Fort Monroe at that time, William Tucker, he was able to acquire Isabella and Anthony. And we consider those to be the first 2 Africans who set foot on English-occupied territory in English North America. And they became servants in his household, but they became indentured servants. They were never slaves. Eventually, they were freed, and they moved to Kent County, and they started their own plantation. So there was a lot of stories about...
But they also had a child.
And they had what we call the first documented child of African descent born in English North America.
The first African American.
Well, we don't.
Although I guess everyone became American.
Well,
the first person to be born.
Yeah, the first person to be born.
As both.
Yeah, as an African child. But there was a lot of scholars out there would not call him an African American.
No, he had no rights.
Because he was born to 2 Africans. He just happened to be born on the American continent. But we know the history of the past 350 years. Being black and being born in America does not make you a citizen.
No.
So we've got that long story we tell.
That's true.
There's a lot of history behind what we do. So there's a big story out there now about indentured versus slaves, and we know that the majority of the 20 and odd Africans were treated as indentured servants, and they were eventually let go. And then there's ones that were on the big plantations that were never let free.
Well, the institutionalization of slavery happened pretty soon after, where there became this program in the country to keep Africans enslaved.
It took 4 generations. Yeah. First Africans arrived in 1619. Virginia did not legalize slavery until 1661. So that's why you've got 40 years where Africans who were considered to be indentured were let go, and those who were working on the larger plantations, like a 1,000-acre plantation, they couldn't let their Africans go, so they kept them.
Right, because the economics of the day did not support.
Right, so that's why they led up to the 1661 decision that all people of color in the Virginia colonies would be considered to be slaves. So this guy here talks about the spirituality of what we try to do, and he's coordinating a lot of activities.
So let's talk about some of those activities that you have planned.
Okay, you want to talk about the youth groups?
Well, we have some students from Hampton University involved, and we're trying to incorporate younger people because a lot of our people don't know the history either. You know, they're taught the same thing that everybody else is taught,
which is another simplified.
It's a narrative written by someone else to tell us who we are and what we were and what we are to become. So we're void of connection. And that's what a part of this is to help bring everybody up to par, everyone. This isn't just something that's dealing with Africans and Hampton, which was Point Comfort then, but we're talking about Hampton City, we're talking about the state, we're talking about the nation, and we're talking about international connectivity. And it's about promoting healing. See, if you don't tell the real truth, see, most people would say the first African landing. I say the first enslaved African landing, you know, to put it out there in your face, to let you know that even though this atrocity did exist, our people have still continued to work to achieve, to help to build and to establish and to maintain this country, and that we're not walking in animosity or anger. We want to come together as one people if we are allowed to. But because of the misunderstandings, people tend to shy away from it when you say enslaved or when you talk about slavery. They don't want to feel it.
No, they don't.
So,
it is painful. It's painful, more painful for you guys probably than for me, but there's all this, you know, guilt, and a lot of folks just like, why can't we pretend that's all behind us? Why can't it be all behind us? No, it shapes who we are still.
The only way that it'll
and
be
who our
behind us
children
if
will
we
be.
face it. I've been in slave castles in Elmina, in Ghana, and in Senegal, and I've watched that when I'm inside of the castle, I'm envisioning and I'm feeling the spirit of my ancestors going through what they were going through, and it was horrendous. And at some points, I can't breathe, and I need to get up, you know, back up into the open space. And I'm watching other countries like Portuguese, Dutch, and English, and they're broken. Some of these men are weeping like babies because they feel the pain, and they're thinking about how their ancestors enslaved another man and treated them like they did. And it hurt them. And, you know, when I touch them and tell them that, you know, speaking for my ancestors, we forgive you. And I know it hurt because it's hurting me. But I know that there are people of good heart, goodwill, that desire to bring this to a reckoning and move forward in it. But until that, we really sit down and have real conversation, it'll still be just like it is.
And that's why on our program each year, we have a program called Reconciliation and Healing. About 5 years ago, we had people came in from the Netherlands. They came over and said that our Dutch relatives, our Dutch ancestors, were a part of the slave trade. And they came to Hampton and said, will you forgive us? So a lot of we do, like Larry said, is about healing and forgiveness. That's a big part of our program. Briefly, next year, 2019, we're working with all the entities that I told you about. The biggest event we've got going on next year is that Fort Monroe Authority is currently building a visitor center. That's going to be dedicated next year on August the 24th, where we're inviting the governor and a lot of representatives to come in and dedicate the museum or the visitor center. Inside the visitor center, there will be exhibits on the first African landing, the contrabands of war, and the military history of Fort Monroe. So that's a big event we've got planned for next year. Also, the monument. After many years, we finally got approval to build a monument at Fort.
You've been working on that for a long time now.
We've been working on it for a long time. So we finally got approval to build the monument. And the monument is going to be, again, a coalition project between the National Park Service, Fort Monroe Authority, and Project 1619. But because they waited so late, that monument is not scheduled to be completed now until 2020. But it still will be a historic.
Well, it isn't it, and it helps us remember that we're not going to stop commemorating in 2019.
Yes.
We need to come back. We need to keep.
Yeah, so it'll be an ongoing project. But the 400th is the big event.
It is, but let's talk briefly about the 399th.
Okay.
Give us the dates and a little bit about what's going on. I know we can go to the website to get more.
The event starts on Friday night, which is August the 24th. We're going to be at the American Theater, and we have a premiere screening of a film that's called I Am Not Your Negro. It's based on a documentary, an unfinished documentary by James Baldwin.
I had not heard
And a
of
lot of
this
people,
before.
yeah, a lot of people are not aware. I mean, James
Yeah.
Baldwin is one of our greatest authors of the past. We've got a movie on Friday night. Saturday on the 25th, we'll be in the park, Continental Park, from 11:30 until 3 o'clock, where we'll do the traditional African dancing and drummers. We have someone coming from the Sierra Leone Embassy in D.C., the Toga Embassy in D.C., along with our youth organizations who are coming out to support it this year. And then for Saturday night, we have our annual Juneteenth jazz concert at the American Theater at 7 o'clock. All great jazz musicians. These are some of the legends. They come out each year to do a benefit concert for us.
And that's where you get to, you start with kind of the arrival and the slavery, but you bring it back to the contributions of African,
Yes.
just in one small area,
Yes.
which
Correct.
is music.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
Yes.
multifaceted.
Yeah, people ask us why we do Juneteenth jazz concert, and it's because we look at Point Comfort, Hampton as the beginning of slavery, although they may have been indentured. We look at Hampton as the beginning of slavery, and Juneteenth is the end of slavery. So they came to us and said we wanted to be a part of your event, so that's why we do the slavery part, and then we do end it with the Juneteenth part where they became free.
And that's what a part of it is too, is building on, that there are countries in Africa and groups of people from Africa, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Kenya, from Zambia, communities that live here in this area, in the 757. And all of them are so elated that when we told them that we want you to be a part of this, and their thing is, some of you don't accept us. And I say some of us don't because of ignorance. But we want you to be a part of this to let people know that we do commemorate this piece. We're talking about our ancestors that lives were taken during the Middle Passage, those that were committed. Some decided that they weren't going to come into slavery or into a strange land, so they opted to jump overboard and drown themselves or be eaten by sharks. And then you had people in Africa that died, and even though they don't talk about it much, that marched from inland Africa to the West Coast. It was an arduous journey, and many died. So we're trying to bring as many people together, and not just us as an African people, but people, period. And we have a big discussion in some circles about the beginnings of mankind. And they said that it was in the midst of 4 rivers, the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Nile, and the Gihon River, which encompassed the whole land of Ethiopia. Well, that's on the continent of Africa, whether they want to admit it or not. So was Egypt. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about mankind coming from one seed, then all of us are related and we're connected. So we're trying to develop that heart set and that mindset as well, that no matter what you call yourself or what you determine that you want to be, we're still one and the same.
That's right.
And that is a great note to wrap up on, because I think we all have to keep that
Yes.
in our minds.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you for having us again.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work you're doing this year,
Okay.
past 11 years, past 15 years. You've been working on this project for a long time. I know Larry has too.
Yes.
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 But let me mention this also. We're also in that, in the commemoration on that Saturday, we have an African naming ceremony, when those people that desire to connect, spiritually and culturally with the continent, we have Yoruba and Ghanaian priests that perform that sacred ceremony for people that either know their DNA backgrounding to what country they come from or what they feel spiritually connected to what country, so that they name you.
And that's got to be very powerful, because the names were one of the many, many things taken away from Africans when they got to this country.
And names are important, they're special.
So this is a very spiritual and educational event, and we ask all the students in the area, teachers, families, to come out and support the event this year. And I think you'll walk away with a better understanding of your ancestors.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you both very much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching. I hope you will attend the 399th commemoration and plan to come back for the 400th, because, as these gentlemen said, this is all of our history. These are events that shape the country we live in today, and the more we understand it, the more we talk about it, the more we come to that reconciliation, the stronger we will be as a people. Thanks for watching.